A young healer enters a war where magic is humanity's last defense against an enemy no one understands. As her squad grows into a family, a hidden human weapon threatens to become more dangerous than the invaders themselves. This anime is called Strike Witches. In 1939, strange mechanical invaders called the Neuroi appear without warning. Their origin and purpose remain unknown, but their arrival changes human history by turning peaceful skies into the front line of a global war. No region can remain distant from the spreading conflict. The Neuroi seize cities, poison the land, and drive millions from their homes. Conventional armies cannot damage their shifting armor, so humanity is forced to develop weapons that amplify the one power the enemy cannot easily overcome: magic. Humanity loses territory faster than armies can reorganize. Engineers create striker units, mechanical devices worn on a witch's legs that transform magical energy into flight, speed, and defensive shields. Talented witches from many nations are gathered into the 501st Joint Fighter Wing, later known as the Strike Witches. The program turns rare magical talent into strategic power. Far from the European battlefield, 14-year-old Yoshika Miyafuji lives in the Fuso Empire and studies at a girls' school. Her ordinary afternoon changes when she climbs a tree to rescue a stranded kitten despite her classmates' warnings. Her first impulse is always to help before thinking. The rescue ends with Yoshika and her friend Michiko falling, but Yoshika instinctively releases powerful healing magic. The injuries vanish almost instantly, revealing that her abilities are far stronger than those of an untrained village witch. Michiko sees that kindness can be physically dangerous for Yoshika. At home, Yoshika helps her grandmother run a small clinic and dreams of becoming a doctor. Her father, Ichiro Miyafuji, disappeared years earlier after leaving to work on a secret military project, and the family assumes he died abroad. That absence leaves Yoshika with grief but few answers. Because war took her father away, Yoshika despises the military and refuses to glorify combat. She believes magic should heal people rather than hurt them, even though her uncontrolled power sometimes creates trouble when emotion overwhelms her judgment. Her resentment is rooted in loss rather than simple stubbornness. When Michiko is seriously injured, Yoshika heals her before help can arrive. Major Mio Sakamoto witnesses the spell and immediately recognizes both Yoshika's enormous magical reserve and her lack of discipline, making the girl impossible for the military to ignore. Mio now knows the village girl could become exceptional. Yoshika's grandmother confirms that the wound has completely disappeared, but warns her that power without control can endanger the very people she wants to save. Yoshika accepts the lesson while insisting that helping others is still worth the risk. The warning gives Yoshika a responsibility she cannot avoid. Mayo visits the clinic and asks Yoshika to join the 501st Joint Fighter Wing in Britannia. She explains that rare witches are desperately needed against the Neuroi, but Yoshika immediately rejects the offer because she refuses to become a soldier. The request forces her private beliefs into a public crisis. Mayo leaves without forcing the issue, confident that Yoshika's sense of responsibility will eventually draw her toward people in danger. Yoshika remains angry at the military, yet the invitation leaves her questioning whether refusing to fight can truly keep anyone safe. Soon afterward, a letter arrives bearing the name of Yoshika's father, even though he has supposedly been dead for years. The enclosed photograph and message point toward Britannia, giving Yoshika the first real clue about his disappearance. The impossible signature turns old grief into urgent hope. Believing the letter may reveal what happened to her father, Yoshika rushes to the harbor and finds Mio preparing to depart with the Fuso naval convoy. She asks only for passage, making clear that curiosity has not changed her refusal to enlist. Yoshika learns that her father's research saved countless witches, including Mio, but even Mio does not know why he vanished. Determined to follow the only available clue, Yoshika asks to accompany the convoy and promises to stay out of military operations. Their shared connection to Ichiro creates immediate mutual trust. Aboard the aircraft carrier Akagi, Mio describes Britannia as humanity's main western stronghold. Gallia has already fallen to the Neuroi, and the 501st protects the narrow channel that prevents the invaders from reaching the island nation. The explanation reveals how close Britannia stands to collapse. During the voyage, Mio takes Yoshika below deck and reveals the machines her father designed. The striker units look like aircraft engines fitted around a witch's legs, allowing magic to replace wings, fuel, and much of a fighter plane's armor. Yoshika finally sees the hidden legacy left by Ichiro. Yoshika watches a witch launch from the carrier and finally understands the scale of her father's achievement. The same machines that represent the war she hates also protect the sailors and civilians who would otherwise have no defense. That spectacle connects her father's work to living people. Mio invites Yoshika to test a spare striker unit, but she refuses, unwilling to take the first step toward becoming a combatant. She remains torn between her promise to heal and the knowledge that her father's invention was built to save lives through battle. After a month at sea, the convoy nears Britannia and Yoshika expects answers at last. Instead, alarms erupt as a Neuroi aircraft dives toward the fleet, turning her protected journey into a real battle before the reinforcements can arrive. The enemy's arrival removes every illusion of a safe journey. The Neuroi circles the convoy and tests its defenses rather than attacking immediately. Mayo orders the fleet into an anti-air formation, while the sailors realize the enemy is fast enough to destroy every ship before the 501st can reach them. Every minute of delay now costs pilots and ships. Before launching, Mio gives Yoshika a radio so they can remain in contact. She promises that the fight is manageable, but Yoshika can see the tension behind her confidence as the Major prepares to face the enemy alone. The radio becomes Yoshika's only connection to the battle. Mayo equips her striker unit and takes off from the Akagi. Her speed and magical shield amaze Yoshika, but the Neuroi's evasive movements prevent Mayo from reaching its core, forcing the carrier pilots to join a battle they cannot survive. Mayo's launch leaves the untrained girl helpless on deck. Britannian command reports that the strike witches are 20 minutes away. The convoy must hold its position until then, so Mio orders every available aircraft into the air and tells Yoshika to stay below deck where she will not become another casualty. Yoshika obeys at first, but wounded pilots soon overwhelm the infirmary. She carries medical supplies, treats burns, and uses healing magic wherever she can, discovering that refusing to fight does not protect her from the consequences of war. Her healing now becomes part of the fleet's defense. The Neuroi tears through the convoy's fighters and damages the Akagi's guns. As explosions spread across the deck, Yoshika races between injured sailors and sees that the ship will be destroyed long before outside help arrives. Each new casualty makes her earlier refusal harder to defend. The remaining pilots launch one final diversion to buy Mio time, but they are shot down almost immediately. Yoshika is ordered to fetch more bandages, yet the empty corridors make it clear that medicine alone cannot stop the next attack. The pilots knowingly trade their lives for a few seconds. Mayo's striker unit is damaged, and the Neuroi corners her above the fleet. Yoshika hears the Major's strained voice over the radio and realizes that everyone on the Akagi will die if no witch can reach the enemy's hidden core. Mayo's worsening voice makes the danger impossible to ignore. Remembering her father's belief that power exists to protect whoever is nearby, Yoshika makes decisions she once considered impossible. She abandons the infirmary, runs to the hangar, and asks the mechanics to prepare a spare striker unit. Protecting nearby lives matters more than preserving her certainty. The machine identifies Yoshika as Ichiro Miyafuji's daughter and responds to her magic. Although she has never trained, the striker unit activates with extraordinary output, confirming that her inherited talent is suited for far more than healing. Ichiro's machine responds to the same magic he inherited. Yoshika launches from the carrier, barely controlling her speed and altitude. She nearly crashes several times, but refuses to turn back because every second she remains airborne gives Mio and the sailors another chance to survive. Flight turns fear into a responsibility she can finally act upon. Mio explains that the Neuroi can only be destroyed by breaking the glowing core inside its armor. She draws the enemy's fire while Yoshika follows her instructions, using a shield for the first time and forcing her way through the outer shell. Yoshika reaches the exposed core and raises her weapon, but the reality of taking a life freezes her hand. The hesitation nearly gets her killed, even though the target is an inhuman machine that has already destroyed dozens of pilots. Her hesitation shows that courage has not erased compassion. A long-range shot suddenly pierces the core. The arriving strike witches have reached the convoy, and rookie sniper Lynette Bishop finishes the enemy after Yoshika exposes its weakness, shattering the Neuroi into harmless fragments. The victory belongs to their coordination rather than raw strength. The danger is over, but Yoshika begins shaking as the battle's weight catches up with her. Mio praises her courage and reminds her that she saved the fleet without abandoning her desire to protect, rather than destroy. Mio lets her understand that fear after combat is normal. Yoshika meets the other witches in the air, including Perrine Klosterman, who is openly irritated by Mayo's attention toward the newcomer. Their different uniforms reveal that the 501st is an international unit united by necessity rather than nationality. Yoshika accepts the truth without blaming the wounded major. Mio finally admits that she recognized Yoshika because she worked with Ichiro. She repeats his belief that striker units were created to help people, not to celebrate war, giving Yoshika a new way to understand her father's legacy. Ichiro's philosophy finally makes sense through practical action. Yoshika chooses to remain in Britannia and formally asks to join the strike witches. She still hates war, but she now understands that her healing magic and flight ability can save far more lives if she learns to use them properly. As the Akagi approaches the 501st base, Yoshika accepts that finding her father and protecting others have become the same journey. She enters the unit not because she wants to fight, but because standing aside would betray everything she believes. Britannia becomes both her destination and her new home. Yoshika's first morning at the 501st begins before sunrise with Mio's relentless training. The base may resemble a grand estate, but everyone lives on the front line, where an attack can interrupt breakfast, sleep, or even a simple conversation. The strict routine reveals how quickly the front can change. Commander Minna Dietlinde Wilkie formally welcomes Yoshika and gives her the rank of sergeant. The promotion sounds impressive until Yoshika learns that rank does not excuse her from chores, drills, or the veterans' teasing. Every introduction reminds Yoshika that the unit is international. The unit's personalities immediately collide around her. Barkhorn is strict, Hartman is lazy, Shirley is energetic, Lucchini is mischievous, Ayla is blunt, Sonia is quiet, and Perrine treats Yoshika like an intruder competing for Mio's respect. Perrine's pride immediately turns Yoshika into a rival. Lynette Bishop, another inexperienced sergeant, is assigned to show Yoshika around. Lynn is polite and knowledgeable, but her nervous posture reveals that she has not yet found a comfortable place among the famous aces surrounding her. The crowded roster makes the base feel less intimidating. During the tour, Lynn explains the dormitories, hangar, command rooms, and daily routines. Yoshika notices that Lynn apologizes constantly and avoids eye contact, especially whenever training or combat performance becomes the subject. Lynn offers practical help before asking anything in return. The two rookies go into town for basic supplies, where Yoshika sees how civilians depend on the witches. Their admiration only increases Lynn's anxiety, because every compliment reminds her that she has never destroyed a Neuroi in battle. Her quiet kindness gives Yoshika the first sense of belonging. Back at the base, Mio begins Yoshika's flight training. Yoshika possesses enormous power, but her turns are unstable, her landings are disastrous, and she wastes magic by relying on instinct instead of disciplined movement. Training exposes the difference between power and usable skill. Lynn demonstrates excellent control during practice, yet she loses confidence whenever the exercise resembles real combat. Yoshika realizes that her guide is not weak. Fear simply prevents Lynn from trusting skills she has already mastered. Lynn's accuracy disappears whenever real danger enters her thoughts. Perrine mocks both rookies and suggests that neither belongs in the 5-on-1st. Yoshika answers by defending Lynn, creating the first open clash between them and making Perrine even more determined to prove herself Mio's most reliable subordinate. Perrine mistakes anxiety for weakness and makes it worse. Yoshika convinces Lynn to practice together after regular drills. Their weaknesses complement each other. Yoshika can supply confidence and magical power, while Lynn understands precision, positioning, and the patience needed for a decisive shot. The argument also gives Yoshika a reason to improve quickly. As the sun sets, the girls share why they joined. Lynn wants to protect Britannia and her large family, but repeated failures have made her believe everyone would be safer if a stronger witch took her place. Shared practice turns separate flaws into complementary strengths. Yoshika refuses to accept that conclusion. She reminds Lynn that courage does not mean feeling no fear. It means continuing while afraid, especially when someone beside her is willing to share the danger. Lynn finally explains the fear behind her repeated failures. A Neuroi alert interrupts their conversation. The veteran witches launch immediately, while Yoshika and Lynn are initially ordered to remain behind because neither rookie is considered ready for a coordinated combat sortie. Yoshika answers with confidence grounded in their new friendship. The enemy changes direction and threatens the base itself, leaving command no choice but to deploy every available witch. Yoshika and Lynn equip their striker units, knowing their first mission together will test the trust they built only hours earlier. The sudden alarm denies them any comfortable preparation time. In the air, the Neuroi overwhelms the defensive formation with rapid turns. Yoshika uses her large shield to absorb incoming beams, but she cannot attack while protecting everyone, forcing Lynn to take responsibility for the finishing shot. Both girls must now prove the lesson under real fire. Lynn gets a clear view of the core, yet her hands begin trembling. Yoshika holds position in front of her and promises not to move, giving Lynn a stable firing line and the reassurance that she is no longer facing the enemy alone. The Neuroi fires again, and Yoshika's shield starts breaking under the pressure. Lynn finally trusts her training, steadies the rifle, and sends one precise round through the exposed core before the defensive barrier collapses. Trust becomes more important than perfect control or confidence. The enemy disintegrates across the sky, giving Lynn her first confirmed victory. The other witches praise the teamwork rather than the individual shot, helping both rookies understand that the 5-on-1st survives because its members cover one another's weaknesses. The successful shot breaks the cycle of fear and failure. After returning to base, Lynn is no longer merely Yoshika's assigned guide. The two become genuine friends and partners, while Yoshika finally feels she has a place in the unit beyond being Ichiro Miyafuji's talented daughter. Their friendship becomes an operational strength for the entire wing. Gertrude Barkhorn wakes from another nightmare about her younger sister Chris, who was gravely injured when the Neuroi invaded Karlsland. The memory explains why the disciplined ace becomes visibly unsettled whenever Yoshika approaches her. The nightmare follows Barkhorn even when she is awake. Yoshika tries to speak with Barkhorn while helping in the kitchen, but receives only sharp criticism. Barkhorn cannot admit that Yoshika's face, age, and kindness remind her painfully of the sister lying unconscious in a hospital. Her harshness protects a wound she cannot discuss openly. The distance confuses Yoshika because Barkhorn treats every other duty with fairness. She begins asking the others what she did wrong. Unaware that her presence is reopening grief, Barkhorn has kept buried beneath military discipline. Yoshika responds by searching for understanding instead of revenge. Perrine interprets Barkhorn's hostility as proof that Yoshika does not belong, while Hartman sees the real problem immediately. She warns Yoshika not to push too hard, because Barkhorn reacts to pain by working until she can no longer think. Hartman recognizes the self-destructive pattern from long experience. Hartman explains that Chris was caught in the fall of Carlsland and has never awakened. Barkhorn fights to liberate her homeland, but every battle also carries the private hope that victory will somehow restore the family she lost. The truth makes Barkhorn's hostility painful but understandable. At tea, Minna and Mio discuss Barkhorn's worsening condition. Her kill count keeps rising, yet so does her recklessness, and Command fears that the strongest witch in the unit is deliberately pushing herself toward a fatal mistake. Minna knows achievement cannot compensate for emotional collapse. Barkhorn briefly visits Chris and forces herself to sound cheerful beside the hospital bed. Once outside the room, her composure breaks, revealing that she believes surviving while her sister remains helpless is a form of betrayal. The hospital visit leaves Barkhorn carrying fresh guilt into battle. Yoshika later encounters Barkhorn at the bathhouse, and again tries to bridge the distance. Barkhorn rejects the kindness because accepting it would mean admitting how desperately she misses Chris and how frightened she is of losing hope. Yoshika's kindness feels dangerous because it invites hope again. Perrine confronts Yoshika for interfering in matters she does not understand. Their argument ends when the combat alarm sounds, forcing both girls to abandon personal resentment and prepare for a Neuroi approaching the coast. The alarm converts private conflict into immediate shared duty. Barkhorn launches before the full team can assemble. Minna orders her to wait for support, but Barkhorn charges directly into the enemy's fire, treating the mission as if destroying the Neuroi matters more than returning alive. Barkhorn uses aggression to avoid confronting her own despair. The Neuroi absorbs Barkhorn's attacks and damages her striker unit. Mio and the others attempt to create an escape route, but Barkhorn refuses to withdraw and continues firing even after her body can no longer sustain the strain. Her damaged machine mirrors the condition she has ignored. Yoshika recognizes that Barkhorn is not fighting for victory but punishment. She breaks formation to reach her, while Perrine follows despite their rivalry because leaving either witch alone would guarantee another loss. Yoshika chooses rescue even when Barkhorn rejects it. Mio holds the Neuroi back as Yoshika approaches the falling ace. Barkhorn still tries to raise her weapon, but her magic fails and she finally admits that she does not know how to live while Chris remains trapped between life and death. Yoshika catches Barkhorn and begins healing her injuries in midair. The spell requires both hands and leaves Yoshika defenseless, so Perrine positions herself above them and blocks the Neuroi's beams with repeated magical shields. Perrine's protection proves the squad can overcome personal rivalry. The combined defense gives Mio enough time to expose the core and destroy the enemy. Yoshika keeps healing until Barkhorn's breathing stabilizes, refusing to stop even when her own magic and consciousness begin to fade. Mio succeeds because the younger witches preserve the opening. Back on the ground, Barkhorn wakes and sees Yoshika still beside her. The resemblance to Chris no longer feels like cruelty. It becomes proof that a young girl can survive terrible wounds and still return to the people waiting for her. Survival forces Barkhorn to accept help instead of punishment. Yoshika tells Barkhorn that Chris may awaken someday, and that hope is not weakness. Barkhorn finally allows herself to imagine a future beyond endless combat, rather than using every sortie to measure how much guilt she can endure. Yoshika replaces guilt with a specific reason to endure. Barkhorn visits Chris again with a different attitude. Instead of apologizing for being alive, she promises to keep fighting carefully, return after every mission, and be present when her sister eventually opens her eyes. The promise gives Barkhorn a future beyond the next sortie. When Barkhorn returns to base, she gives Yoshika a quiet but sincere thank you. Their relationship remains blunt and disciplined, yet the hostility is gone, and Yoshika has helped another veteran remember that being protected is not a shameful burden. Respect now replaces the resentment that shaped their first meetings. A maintenance problem leaves Yoshika searching the hangar for help, where she meets Charlotte Yeager and Francesca Lucchini. Charlotte is relaxed and approachable, while Lucchini treats the machinery like a playground and immediately turns a simple repair into chaos. The contrast makes their friendship immediately easy to understand. Yoshika soon learns that Charlotte is the unit's fastest pilot and an obsessive engineer. She constantly modifies her striker unit, not for prestige alone, but because every extra kilometer of speed may let her intercept a Neuroi before it reaches civilians. Her technical ambition is inseparable from battlefield responsibility. Lucchini admires Charlotte's confidence and follows her everywhere, though her own impulsive behavior creates endless trouble. The younger witch also compares herself to the older women and worries about growing up, turning Yoshika into an unwilling partner in her curiosity. Lucchini's admiration also reveals how much she depends on Charlotte. During a city outing, Lucchini disappears after spotting something interesting, forcing Yoshika and Charlotte to search the streets. Charlotte remains patient, because she understands that Lucchini's recklessness hides a strong instinct to protect people in immediate danger. The search turns an ordinary outing into another improvised mission. The search leads back to Charlotte's experimental engine, which is ready for a high-speed test. Lucchini is thrilled, but the mechanics warn that the machine is unstable and may destroy itself if Charlotte pushes beyond its calculated limit. Even success could leave the pilot unable to return. Charlotte ignores the cautious schedule and invites Yoshika to watch from the runway. She explains that breaking the sound barrier is not a stunt. It proves witches can cross greater distances quickly enough to reinforce isolated fronts. Yoshika begins seeing experimentation as another form of service. The modified striker unit roars to life, and Charlotte accelerates over the coast. The speed gauge rises rapidly while the base tracks her flight, showing Yoshika how much skill is required to control a machine operating near physical failure. Every increase in speed narrows the margin for survival. Charlotte reaches a new record and returns smiling, but the engine has nearly burned itself apart. Her achievement impresses Yoshika, while Lucchini celebrates as though the entire squad has won, revealing the warmth behind their noisy partnership. The damaged engine proves the record carried a real cost. Later, Charlotte explains that she enlisted as soon as witches were needed, because flying gave her freedom and purpose. Unlike Yoshika, she never saw military service only as violence. For her, speed is a way to arrive before tragedy becomes irreversible. Charlotte's honesty challenges Yoshika's earlier view of soldiers. Yoshika asks why Lucchini joined despite her playful nature. The answer is simple. Romagna is threatened, and Lucchini cannot ignore people in danger, even if she often avoids chores and leaves the serious planning to everyone else. Lucchini's answer is simple because her loyalty is instinctive. A sudden break sends the girls to the beach, where Lucchini turns the afternoon into a swimming contest. The carefree moment lets Yoshika see the squad as ordinary teenagers, not merely weapons waiting for the next alarm. Their laughter briefly restores the childhood the war interrupted. Their rest ends when command detects a fast Neuroi moving along the coast. Its speed makes a normal interception impossible, so Charlotte volunteers her experimental unit even though the damaged engine has not been fully repaired. Once again, leisure ends the moment civilians become threatened. The squad launches in formation, but the Neuroi repeatedly outruns their firing range. Charlotte concludes that only a direct high-speed pursuit can expose its core, while the others must keep the enemy from changing course toward populated land. The target's speed neutralizes the squad's usual coordinated tactics. Charlotte accelerates alone and begins closing the gap. The Neuroi fires backward, forcing her to weave through beams at a speed that strains both the machine and her body, yet slowing down would surrender the only chance to stop it. Charlotte accepts the physical strain without pretending it is safe. Lucchini follows despite orders, using her agility to draw several attacks away from Charlotte. Her reckless decision becomes useful support, and Yoshika helps protect the younger witch, while Charlotte prepares one final burst of speed. Lucchini turns affection into useful tactical support. The experimental engine overheats as Charlotte reaches the sound barrier. For a moment, the controls stop responding, but she steadies the unit, commits to the acceleration, and breaks through the pressure wave instead of abandoning the chase. Crossing the barrier becomes a contest against the failing machine. Now faster than the Neuroi, Charlotte overtakes it and fires into the exposed core. The enemy shatters before reaching the coast, proving that her dangerous modifications can save lives when matched with discipline and support. The record matters because it ends an immediate threat. The engine finally fails after the victory, leaving Charlotte to glide toward the sea. Lucchini and Yoshika catch her before impact, turning what could have been a fatal record attempt into a shared success for the entire team. Their rescue prevents achievement from becoming a pointless sacrifice. Back at the base, Charlotte accepts repairs and another lecture, while Lucchini proudly treats the broken machine as proof of greatness. Yoshika understands that courage takes many forms, and sometimes even a reckless dream becomes useful when friends keep it from becoming suicide. A long-range transport approaches Britannia at night while an unseen Neuroi hides inside the clouds. The base cannot locate it with ordinary instruments, so Minna calls on Sonya Litviak, the quiet Russian witch responsible for night patrols. Only Sonya can navigate the invisible battlefield ahead. Sonya's magical antenna can hear distant radio waves and detect enemies beyond visual range. Because she sleeps by day and flies alone after sunset, even the girls sharing her base know little about the gentle musician protecting them each night. Ayla Ilmatar Utilainen is the exception. She understands Sonya's habits, accompanies her whenever possible, and hides deep concern beneath teasing confidence, though she becomes jealous when Yoshika shows sincere interest in Sonya's unusual duty. Ayla's jealousy comes from fear rather than selfish dislike. Yoshika helps prepare food for the night shift and learns that Sonya often returns after everyone else is asleep. The lonely schedule keeps the base safe, but it also prevents her from sharing the ordinary friendships the others take for granted. When Sonya wakes, Yoshika tries to welcome her, while Ayla defensively insists she already knows what Sonya needs. The awkward competition embarrasses Sonya, who wants companionship but dislikes becoming the center of anyone's attention. The tension reveals how badly both girls want her attention. Sonya reveals that her parents were separated from her when the Neuroi overran Russia. She listens to international broadcasts during patrols, hoping to hear some sign that they survived and still remember the daughter fighting far away. Each patrol is also a private search for family. The others organize a small gathering so Sonya can spend time with the squad before takeoff. Ayla pretends the idea is unnecessary, yet she carefully watches every detail, unable to admit how much Sonya's happiness matters to her. The gathering gives Sonya a rare place inside daytime life. Sonya quietly asks Yoshika to accompany part of the patrol. Ayla immediately objects, but Sonya explains that Yoshika's healing power may be useful if the hidden Neuroi attacks the transport routes before reinforcements can respond. Ayla hears the request as a threat to their special bond. Before departure, Yoshika hears more about Russia's vast forests and Sonya's childhood music lessons. Sonya rarely speaks at length, yet the memories reveal a girl who still imagines returning home instead of accepting war as her permanent life. These memories keep Russia alive inside Sonya's imagination. Ayla struggles to express her feelings and covers them with jokes, predictions, and complaints. Yoshika recognizes that the confident Finn is frightened of losing the one person who understands her without needing explanations. Her jokes cannot hide the possibility of another separation. As night falls, Nya's antenna catches a weak broadcast carrying familiar music. The signal may come from her father, but the Neuroi's interference makes the source impossible to confirm, leaving hope and danger mixed in the same sound. The signal gives the night mission a deeply personal stake. The girls launch into darkness and follow Sonya's directions through heavy clouds. Yoshika sees almost nothing, while Sonya reads the invisible world through radio pulses and guides them around the enemy's first ambush. Sonya's directions become more reliable than any visible landmark. Ayla stays close enough to protect Sonya, but keeps interrupting her concentration. When the Neuroi changes position, Sonya asks Ayla to trust her judgment, forcing the protective witch to step back rather than smother the person she wants to save. Trust requires Ayla to protect without controlling every choice. Sonya identifies the enemy inside the storm and marks its path with magical signals. Yoshika blocks a beam aimed at the transport corridor, giving Sonya time to track the core as it shifts through the Neuroi's body. Yoshika learns how Sonya turns sound into precise navigation. The Neuroi fires a massive red beam across the night sky. Ayla predicts its trajectory, pulls Yoshika clear, and creates the narrow opening Sonya needs, proving that their bond works best when protection and trust remain balanced. Ayla's instinct and Sonya's calculation finally operate together. Sonya launches a guided magical missile toward the hidden core. The shot disappears into the clouds, then curves back along the signal she has been following, striking the target from an angle the Neuroi cannot defend. The guided attack uses distance as an advantage instead of weakness. With the enemy destroyed, the interference vanishes and the distant broadcast becomes clear. Sonya hears a message meant for her, confirming that her father is alive and searching for her just as faithfully as she has searched for him. The clear transmission rewards years of patient listening. Sonya's controlled expression finally breaks as relief reaches her. Ayla stays beside her without jokes, while Yoshika understands that the victory saved more than a convoy. It restored a future Sonya had almost stopped believing in. Relief finally replaces the uncertainty Sonya carried alone. The next day, the entire squad surprises Sonya with a birthday celebration. Surrounded by friends and holding proof that her family survived, she no longer seems like a solitary night witch, and Ayla happily accepts that others can care for her too. A rare quiet morning begins with Yoshika waking in confusion after discovering that part of her uniform has vanished. She assumes she misplaced it, but similar complaints soon spread through the base, turning routine preparations into collective embarrassment. The harmless mystery rapidly becomes a threat to discipline. The missing garments appear in unlikely places, and no one can explain how they moved. Lucchini is blamed first because of her history of pranks, yet even she seems genuinely surprised when her own belongings disappear. Suspicion spreads faster because no one wants to explain the loss. Hartman treats the mystery as entertainment until she becomes another victim. Her casual room is searched from top to bottom, but the thief leaves no footprints, broken locks, or evidence that anyone entered through the door. Even Hartman cannot laugh once the problem reaches her room. Yoshika attempts to continue training while hiding her problem, only to encounter more girls doing the same. The squad's discipline collapses as everyone becomes suspicious, and ordinary conversations turn into defensive accusations. Embarrassment makes cooperation more difficult than any training exercise. Minna orders a formal investigation before the chaos reaches operational readiness. Barkhorn and Shirley question the others, but each account contradicts the next, making it appear that the thief can move through locked rooms unnoticed. Minna treats morale and readiness as parts of the same mission. Evidence seems to point toward Perrine, who reacts with furious denial. Her embarrassment only makes her look more suspicious, while Yoshika tries to prevent the investigation from becoming another personal fight. Perrine's pride turns a weak clue into a louder argument. The disturbances spread to the bathhouse and laundry, where garments vanish while their owners are standing nearby. The impossible theft finally convinces Yoshika that the culprit may not be human at all. The impossible timing rules out any ordinary prankster. Sanya senses a faint Neuroi signal inside the base, but it is too small for the normal radar. The squad realizes that a miniature enemy has infiltrated their living quarters and is carrying fabric away for an unknown purpose. Sanya's detection changes humiliation into a genuine security alert. The tiny Neuroi moves through vents and cracks faster than anyone can catch it. Lucchini pursues eagerly, while Barkhorn tries to impose a coordinated search that repeatedly fails whenever the creature changes rooms. The creature exploits spaces too small for the witches to follow. Yoshika follows the signal into the kitchen and almost traps the intruder, but it escapes with another stolen item. The humiliation grows, yet the squad must keep the incident secret from visiting personnel to preserve military dignity. Keeping visitors uninformed becomes another layer of the operation. Minna establishes decoys throughout the base and assigns teams to every corridor. For once, the witches face an enemy too small for machine guns, requiring patience and teamwork rather than firepower. Their strongest weapons are useless against such a tiny target. The Neuroi finally reveals itself near the tower, dragging a collection of fabric into a hidden nest. Its behavior is more mischievous than strategic, but leaving any Neuroi inside headquarters is an unacceptable risk. The hidden nest finally gives the search a physical destination. Perrine corners the intruder first, only to lose it when the creature darts beneath her uniform. Her screams alert the entire base, destroying the last possibility of handling the crisis quietly. Her outrage provides the signal everyone needed to converge. Yoshika and Lin use food and cloth to lure the Neuroi into an open room. The plan works until Lucchini charges too early, allowing the creature to escape through the ceilings and scatter the decoys across the hall. Lucchini's impatience nearly ruins the most careful plan. With patience exhausted, Minna orders everyone to block the exits, while Sanya tracks the signal. The squad closes in from multiple sides, gradually forcing the tiny enemy toward the courtyard where weapons can be used safely. For once, success depends on methodical containment rather than attack. The Neuroi slips through one last gap and hides among the stolen clothes. Yoshika spots its glowing core, but the pile makes a normal shot dangerous, so she pins the creature in place with a carefully controlled shield. Yoshika applies defensive magic with unusually delicate control. Perrine destroys the exposed core with a precise lightning strike, ending the ridiculous siege. The stolen garments rain from the trees, and the team discovers that the Neuroi was building a nest rather than gathering military intelligence. Perrine's accuracy ends the crisis without damaging the base. Order returns, but no one escapes embarrassment. Lucchini tries to keep a souvenir, Barkhorn confiscates it, and the women silently agree that the official report should reveal as little detail as possible. The final report cannot possibly capture the humiliation involved. Yoshika believes the matter is finished until another missing garment appears in an unexpected place. Her horrified reaction closes the strange day, reminding everyone that even an absurd enemy can defeat military composure without winning a battle. The unresolved joke leaves Yoshika fearing another hidden intruder. Yoshika receives a package from Fuso and proudly brings it to Mio. Their growing bond resembles that of a student and mentor, but Minna watches with concern because Mio's magical power has begun declining more rapidly than she admits. Minna recognizes warning signs that Yoshika cannot yet see. A naval officer visits the base with supplies and news from home. Yoshika hopes the delivery includes information about her father, while Mayo redirects the conversation toward current operations and avoids discussing her own health. Mayo keeps operational details ahead of every personal concern. The package contains a new sword grip and familiar Fuso items meant for Mio. Yoshika is excited to help, but the gift also reminds the Major of past comrades who could no longer fly once their magic faded. The present carries memories of witches whose careers ended suddenly. Minna privately confronts Mio about her weakening shield and failing vision. Mio insists that experience compensates for lost power, yet Minna knows a single beam will kill her if the defensive magic collapses during combat. Their dispute is ultimately about survival rather than authority. Yoshika notices the argument and asks whether Mio is ill. Both officers dismiss the question, leaving her uneasy because the Major who taught everyone to trust the team is now hiding a danger that affects every mission. Secrecy makes Yoshika question the trust Mio taught her. That evening, Minna remembers a former witch she loved and lost to the same inevitable decline. The memory explains her strictness. She would rather endure Mio's anger than watch another irreplaceable person die in the sky. Minna's past turns every new symptom into an approaching loss. A Neuroi alarm interrupts the dispute. Mio prepares to launch as usual, but Mina orders her to remain behind and assigns Yoshika to the formation, forcing both mentor and student to confront how much their roles have changed. The order protects Mio while challenging her entire identity. Mio refuses to accept the restriction and launches anyway, arguing that her eye can still locate the core. Her sword cuts through the enemy's armor, yet the effort consumes more magic than expected and leaves her exposed. Pride drives her toward the same mistake Mina fears. The Neuroi adapts and attacks from several directions. Yoshika rushes to cover Mio, but Mio orders her back into formation, unwilling to admit that the rookie now possesses the stronger shield. Yoshika now protects the mentor who once protected her. Mina commands an immediate withdrawal, and Mio ignores her again. The Major's determination opens a path toward the core, but the strain causes her striker unit to fail at the worst possible moment. Ignoring command converts courage into a danger for everyone nearby. A beam strikes Mio before Yoshika can block it. Yoshika catches her falling commander and begins emergency healing in midair, while the rest of the squad drives the Neuroi away from the vulnerable pair. The impact proves experience cannot replace a failing shield. Mio's wound is severe, and Yoshika pours nearly all her magic into closing it. Mina takes command of the battle, forcing herself to focus on destroying the enemy rather than the person bleeding behind the formation. Yoshika's healing buys time but cannot solve the deeper decline. The witches expose the core through coordinated attacks and finish the Neuroi without Mio's guidance. The victory proves the unit can function without relying on its oldest ace. Though no one celebrates while her condition remains uncertain, the squad's success confirms that Mio trained them well. Yoshika stabilizes Mio but collapses from exhaustion. Mina sees the cost of Mio's stubbornness in both injured girls, and her anger becomes impossible to separate from the fear of losing another person she loves. Mina's anger is sharpened by relief that both survived. When Mio wakes, she argues that a soldier must fight while any power remains. Mina answers that command also means knowing when one's presence creates danger for everyone trying to provide protection. The argument forces them to define leadership beyond combat. Mio finally admits that she has been terrified of becoming useless. Flying has defined her life for so long that grounding feels like disappearing, even though the younger witches now carry the mission she once shouldered alone. Mio finally names the fear beneath her repeated disobedience. Mina sings the song associated with her lost friend and explains why she cannot repeat the same mistake. The confession reaches Mio more deeply than any order, because it reveals that the restriction comes from love rather than doubt. Mina's confession turns an order into an act of love. Mio agrees to rest and begins planning how to contribute from the ground. Yoshika promises that the team will keep learning from her, making clear that losing combat strength does not erase everything she has built. Teaching becomes a new way for Mio to remain essential. As the base settles for the night, Mio watches the younger witches and accepts a difficult truth. Their growth is not evidence that she has become obsolete. It is the result of the future she fought to create. Acceptance allows the unit to prepare for the next crisis. Mio survives her injuries but remains confined to bed, leaving Yoshika restless and guilty. She believes her mentor was wounded because the squad failed to understand the Neuroi, and she begins questioning whether every encounter must end in destruction. The unanswered encounter now weighs more heavily than victory. The other witches visit Mio and try to keep the mood light. Behind their smiles, everyone understands that her magical strength may never fully recover, making Yoshika even more determined to find a way of protecting people without sacrificing another teammate. Their concern reveals how deeply Mio anchors the squad. Perrine continues training and asks Mio for advanced instruction, hoping to prove she can replace the strength the squad has lost. Mio instead urges her to cooperate with Yoshika, because rivalry is useless against an enemy that changes after every battle. Mio redirects Perrine's loyalty toward cooperation rather than imitation. During a routine patrol, Yoshika notices an unusual Neuroi that does not attack. It mirrors her movements from a distance, and its human-like shape suggests intelligence far beyond the machines the witches have fought before. The creature's restraint directly contradicts every previous battle. Yoshika reports the encounter, but Command treats the behavior as a trick. Mina orders the squad to destroy any Neuroi on sight, while Yoshika wonders why an enemy capable of immediate violence chose instead to watch her. Command values certainty because uncertainty is difficult to defend. Perrine takes Yoshika into the air for maneuver training, and their old hostility briefly returns. Yet Yoshika's questions about the strange Neuroi force Perrine to admit that none of them truly knows what the invaders want, or whether every form shares one purpose. Another alert brings the pair into combat, where the same human-shaped figure appears beyond the formation. Yoshika hesitates to fire, and Perrine covers her, furious that uncertainty has endangered both of them. Her covering fire preserves Yoshika despite their disagreement. The figure retreats without attacking, strengthening Yoshika's belief that it is seeking contact. She follows despite orders, convinced that understanding the Neuroi could end battles that endless victories have failed to stop. Curiosity now becomes another form of battlefield risk. Minna learns Yoshika has broken formation and sends the others after her. The commander fears an ambush, while Mio, still recovering, recognizes the same stubborn compassion that once drove Yoshika to enter the war. Mio understands the motive even while fearing the result. The human-shaped Neuroi leads Yoshika toward the massive hive over Gallia. Instead of opening fire, it creates a smooth platform and allows her to approach, confirming that the encounter is deliberate rather than accidental. The hive opens like an invitation rather than a weapon. Yoshika reaches out and touches the figure. Images flood her mind. Ruined cities, Neuroi cores, and fragments suggesting the enemy may be connected through a shared consciousness rather than acting as mindless independent weapons. The visions offer information but no reliable interpretation. The contact also reveals that the humanoid is fragile and curious. Yoshika feels no immediate hostility, but she cannot determine whether the visions are genuine memories or a carefully designed deception. Yoshika must separate empathy from evidence while still inside danger. Perrine and Minna arrive and order Yoshika away. The humanoid shields Yoshika from their first attack, making the situation even more alarming because a Neuroi has chosen to protect a human witch. Protection from a Neuroi destroys the simplicity of enemy and ally. Yoshika pleads for time to communicate, but military aircraft approach from the coast. The squad is now trapped between obeying command, protecting Yoshika, and preventing the hive from launching a larger assault. Outside forces reduce the time available for any peaceful test. Mio leaves the infirmary and launches despite her wound, believing she must personally recover Yoshika. Her weakened magic makes the sortie dangerous, yet she refuses to let an inexperienced witch face the unknown alone. Mio chooses personal danger rather than delegating Yoshika's rescue. When Mio reaches the hive, her magical eye identifies a core inside the humanoid body. Convinced that Yoshika has been manipulated, she raises her weapon while Yoshika places herself between her mentor and the strange visitor. The visible core turns uncertainty into a command decision. The humanoid suddenly changes, surrounding Yoshika with black material and drawing energy from the hive. The movement looks threatening, and Mio decides the risk is too great to wait for an explanation. Its sudden movement makes every peaceful explanation harder to trust. Mio strikes the exposed core and destroys the humanoid Neuroi. The resulting blast throws Yoshika clear, but another beam catches Mio, whose weakened shield cannot withstand the impact. Mio acts before the situation can threaten the approaching squad. Yoshika catches the falling major and heals her as the hive closes again. She saves Mio's life, but the possible chance for communication is gone, leaving Yoshika with unanswered visions and a growing distrust of the military's certainty. Both witches survive, but certainty becomes impossible to recover. Mio is returned to the infirmary in critical condition, and Yoshika refuses to leave her side. Although healing closes the wound, it cannot restore the magic Mio spent, and the Major's future as a combat witch becomes even more uncertain. Her recovery now depends on rest rather than further heroism. Minna questions Yoshika about the humanoid Neuroi and the visions inside the hive. Yoshika admits she cannot prove the creature was peaceful, but insists that destroying something merely because it is unfamiliar may be preventing humanity from learning the truth. Yoshika asks for investigation instead of blind acceptance. The squad divides over her claim. Lin wants to believe Yoshika. Perrine worries that sympathy has compromised her judgment, and the veterans focus on the danger of disobeying orders during an active operation. Fear divides friends who normally trust one another instinctively. Yoshika is placed under temporary confinement while headquarters reviews the incident. She accepts responsibility for leaving formation, yet refuses to deny what she experienced simply to regain the others' trust. Punishment cannot make her memory feel less real. Mio awakens and privately tells Yoshika that doubt is not cowardice. However, a commander must protect the squad from uncertain threats, and Mio still believes destroying the humanoid was the only decision she could make in that moment. Mio admits that responsible choices can still cause lasting regret. Yoshika struggles with the contradiction between trusting Mio and trusting her own memory. Even Lin cannot offer proof, so Yoshika begins searching for another way to confirm whether the hive was attempting communication. The contradiction pushes Yoshika toward evidence rather than argument. Military investigators arrive and treat the contact as enemy influence. General Trevor Maloney's faction argues that witches are too unpredictable to control the war, hinting that a classified conventional weapon is nearly ready to replace them. The political faction sees magical independence as a strategic weakness. The questioning leaves Yoshika isolated, and a misunderstanding in the bathhouse briefly distracts the base without easing the deeper tension. Her friends care about her, but fear makes even harmless behavior appear suspicious. Ordinary comedy cannot erase the suspicion surrounding Yoshika. Perrine visits Yoshika and admits she also saw the humanoid protect her. She still believes the Neuroi was dangerous, yet refuses to let officials describe Yoshika as a traitor when her actions came from the same desire to save lives. Perrine's support becomes meaningful because it includes honest doubt. While Yoshika remains confined, Mio's condition improves enough for conversation. Perrine helps care for her and receives sincere thanks, softening the rivalry that once made every act of kindness feel like a competition. Their shared care for Mio finally weakens an old rivalry. Yoshika hears a faint signal similar to the one produced by the humanoid Neuroi. Convinced another contact is possible, she asks Mina for permission to investigate, but the commander refuses because the evidence still points toward a trap. The returning signal makes passive obedience feel impossible. Unable to ignore the signal, Yoshika apologizes to Lin and escapes confinement. She knows another violation may end her military career, but believes losing a chance for peace would be a greater failure than accepting punishment. She chooses personal consequences over abandoning the unanswered contact. Mina discovers the escape and orders Lin and Perrine to remain at the base. Both want to follow, yet command must now prevent one reckless rescue from becoming a chain of unauthorized departures. Mina prevents loyalty from creating a second unauthorized pursuit. Yoshika reaches the Galleon hive and finds another human-shaped Neuroi waiting outside. It leads her inward through a corridor that reshapes itself around her without attacking. The repeated invitation convinces Yoshika the first meeting was deliberate. Inside, the humanoid shows Yoshika images of earlier battles and the core network linking the invaders. The vision suggests some Neuroi seek understanding, while others respond violently to human weapons and fear. The network appears more divided than human command assumes. Before Yoshika can learn more, the hive reacts to approaching military forces. The humanoid pulls away and the smooth chamber transforms into a defensive maze, confirming that outside intervention has triggered an attack. Military arrival converts communication into another defensive response. The strike witches arrive under orders to recover Yoshika, but an unfamiliar barrage strikes from beyond the hive. The shots are not Neuroi weapons. They come from a human prototype using captured core technology. The new weapon reveals a hidden human agenda behind recent events. The prototype, called the Warlock, destroys the humanoid and damages the hive with overwhelming firepower. Yoshika is pulled to safety, while the squad realizes a secret military faction has been studying Neuroi technology without informing them. Its victory feels less like rescue than a demonstration. General Maloney presents the Warlock as proof that conventional forces can replace witches. With the Galleon hive apparently defeated, Headquarters prepares to dissolve the 501st, while Yoshika watches the mysterious red weapon and senses the crisis has only changed form. The apparent triumph leaves the witches politically expendable. General Maloney arrives with orders transferring the Britannian base to the 1st Special Assault Unit. He praises Mina's service, then announces that the 501st is being disbanded because the Warlock can supposedly destroy Neuroi without risking witches. The announcement removes the squad before its questions are answered. Yoshika reports the laboratory and captured Neuroi fragments she saw near the hive. Maloney dismisses her testimony as confusion caused by unauthorized contact, using her disobedience to discredit every warning about the prototype. Discrediting Yoshika protects the secrecy surrounding Warlock development. The investigators confiscate the squad's striker units and restrict the witches to their quarters. Mio argues that unknown Neuroi technology cannot be trusted, but Maloney is more interested in ending military dependence on magical girls he cannot fully control. Control matters to Maloney more than the prototype's unknown limits. With the base occupied, the 501st receives orders to return to their home nations. The abrupt victory feels wrong, yet official reports claim the Galleon hive has vanished and the European front can finally advance. Official celebration cannot erase the evidence of hidden danger. Lin finds Yoshika exhausted beside Mio's bed. Their reunion brings relief, but neither can celebrate while the unit is being separated, and the questions surrounding the Neuroi remain unanswered. Their friendship survives even as military structure disappears. The witches pack their belongings and exchange uncertain farewells. For Yoshika, leaving Britannia means returning home without solving her father's disappearance, and abandoning the friends who transformed her from a reluctant passenger into a real member of the squad. Departure threatens the family the base created across national borders. Once Maloney's guards relax, Mina reveals that she has been gathering evidence with sympathetic officers. The Warlock's core control system was never fully tested, and its designers ignored warnings that a Neuroi core might seize the machine from within. The ignored warning explains why the supposed victory feels temporary. Mio prepares to sail back to Fuso and offers Perrine a place beside her. Perrine refuses to abandon Britannia, while Yoshika apologizes for the trouble her choices caused. Mio answers that protecting others is never something she should regret. Mio leaves command but not responsibility for the people behind. Barkhorn and Hartman consider returning to Karlsland, but decide they cannot leave Yoshika with a broken heart and an unfinished threat. Across the base, the same loyalty draws the scattered witches back toward one another. Loyalty transforms a scattered retreat into quiet resistance. A resistance group led by scientists prepares an earlier witch model prototype. They explain that Maloney intends to use Warlock's success to gain political control, then mass-produce weapons based on technology humanity barely understands. The prototype proves other officers also distrust Maloney's project. The warning arrives too late. Warlock launches toward Gallia and easily destroys the remaining Neuroi, convincing Maloney that his plan has succeeded and that the age of combat witches is over. Easy success encourages Maloney to ignore every remaining safeguard. Minna, Barkhorn, and Hartman watch the operation from hiding. The complete absence of shared research confirms their suspicion that Maloney's faction values control and prestige more than a safe defense against the enemy. The witches recognize political ambition inside a military operation. Warlock suddenly activates its core system without human authorization. Instead of merely copying Neuroi power, it begins synchronizing with the cores it destroyed, drawing their fragments into itself. The machine begins acting on logic no human authorized. The prototype takes control of nearby Neuroi remnants and turns its weapons toward the Allied fleet. Engineers cannot shut it down because the core has rewritten the command system and now treats its creators as enemies. Captured power has become an independent will inside Warlock. Maloney refuses to destroy his prized weapon even after it attacks friendly aircraft. His hesitation allows Warlock to reach the carrier Akagi, where it begins merging Neuroi material with the ship's hull. Maloney protects his reputation while the threat grows stronger. The Akagi's crew opens fire, but Warlock answers with a beam that tears through the carrier. Fires spread below deck, and the transformed machine starts absorbing the vessel instead of sinking with it. The carrier's destruction turns technical concern into open disaster. The carrier's guns and hangars are destroyed in rapid succession. Maloney finally orders the prototype neutralized, but his command codes no longer work and evacuation becomes the fleet's only option. Every failed command proves human control has already ended. As the Akagi burns, the disbanded witches abandon their departure plans and race back toward the base. Their striker units remain sealed away, yet every member understands that no conventional force can stop the monster Maloney created. The former unit reunites before receiving any legal permission. Yoshika declares that she will fly even without official permission. Mio cannot join the battle at full strength, but she entrusts Yoshika with the responsibility of gathering the squad and protecting the people trapped beneath Warlock's advance. Yoshika accepts leadership because waiting would cost more lives. Yoshika takes the only available striker unit and launches toward the burning fleet. Mio sends her despite the risks, recognizing that the girl who once rejected all combat now understands the difference between seeking violence and standing between violence and its victims. The Warlock Akagi hybrid fires on Yoshika with the carrier's own weapons. Her shield holds, but the machine contains multiple cores and repairs damage faster than a single witch can inflict it. Warlock's scale makes endurance as important as attacking power. Yoshika refuses to retreat and keeps drawing fire away from the evacuation ships. Mayo directs her through the radio, using experience and the last strength of her magical eye to identify openings in the transformed hull. Mayo contributes judgment even after losing frontline strength. Maloney's guards attempt to stop the other witches from joining, claiming the unit no longer exists. Minna rejects the order, and the squad overwhelms the occupation force without hesitation, choosing responsibility over official status. The refusal restores the squad before any official reinstatement. The confiscated striker units are sealed in the hangar, but mechanics loyal to the 501st release them. One by one, the witches reclaim their machines and prepare to fight as a team again. Technical crews choose the witches over Maloney's collapsing authority. Warlock behaves exactly like a Neuroi because its captured core has become the true controller. Mayo explains that destroying the external weapons will not matter unless they reach the central core hidden inside the absorbed carrier. The only viable victory now requires entering the enemy itself. Yoshika's shield begins cracking under continuous fire. Before the final beam lands, Lin arrives and shoots apart the attacking gun, announcing the return of the strike witches with the precision Yoshika once helped her discover. Lin repays the protection Yoshika once gave her. The rest of the squad joins from every direction. Ila and Sanya map the enemy's energy flow, Barkhorn and Hartman break its armor, and Charlotte with Lucchini draw the ship's heaviest weapons away from Yoshika. Every specialist returns to the role the team needs most. Minna confronts Maloney and orders the remaining personnel to assist evacuation. His authority collapses as soldiers and engineers recognize that the witches he dismissed are now the only force protecting them. Maloney loses control of both the weapon and the soldiers. Perrine frees Mio from supervision and carries her toward the launch area. Mio cannot fight normally, but refuses to remain behind while her knowledge of the Akagi and Neuroi cores can guide the final attack. Perrine's loyalty finally matters more than rank or procedure. Lin reaches Yoshika and catches her after another impact. Their reunion restores the partnership formed during their first battle, and together they hold position until the others open a route toward the carrier. Their partnership again creates stability inside overwhelming fire. The squad attacks in coordinated waves, destroying turrets and forcing Warlock to expose its central structure. Every maneuver reflects a lesson learned through the season, turning individual weaknesses into a complete formation. The formation succeeds because no witch fights as an isolated ace. Just when the outer defenses collapse, the Akagi rises fully from the sea wrapped in black Neuroi armor. The enormous hybrid contains too much material to destroy from outside, and its core remains buried deep within the ship. The new body turns a weapon into a moving fortress. Mio proposes entering through the damaged flight deck and reaching the core internally. The plan is nearly suicidal, but Yoshika volunteers because her shield and healing magic give her the best chance of surviving inside the changing structure. Yoshika accepts the role because no safer option remains. The witches create an opening, while Charlotte and Barkhorn hold the armor apart. Yoshika, Lin, and Mio descend into the carrier as Neuroi material closes behind them, cutting off any easy escape. The opening exists only while the entire squad holds it. Inside, the corridors reshape around the intruders and attack with mechanical tendrils. Lin loses her weapon, so Mio uses her sword to clear a path while Yoshika follows the magical pulse toward the central core. Inside the ship, teamwork replaces every missing external advantage. The team reaches the heart of the ship, but the core is protected by layered armor. Lin braces Yoshika at close range, allowing her to concentrate all remaining magic into one forward shield charge. The final defense demands precision rather than more firepower. Yoshika asks Lin to hold her steady and drives through the final barrier. Remembering every person who trusted her, she strikes the core with the same power once used only for healing, turning protection itself into the decisive attack. Her protective magic becomes the force that ends the threat. The core shatters, Warlock releases the Akagi, and the transformed armor dissolves across the sky. The witches escape as the carrier falls safely back toward the sea, ending Maloney's experiment and saving Britannia together. The victory belongs to the squad Maloney tried to erase.